one of the things in that conversation you and I had is I said, man, I feel like everything now is political. And some of the responses people were upset gave me political responses. And you helped me see some things there that I didn't see, which I'm grateful for. And I want to talk about some of that because you said, hey, we're making everything political, but sometimes we're just dressing up sin, we're dressing up racism with political talk.
Absolutely.
Talk to me about some of that.
Yeah, I think it's very important that we not couch everything and throw everything into the political basket, when the reality is some of what we're seeing is not political at all. It is actually sin.
Yeah.
And I think our conversation, and I appreciate you having received my challenge, that we shouldn't just pawn it off something that's clearly a prejudice. Here's one of the things I learned. I learned that I have prejudices. You know, if my car breaks down in the middle of two houses in the middle of the night, and I know a white family lives in one house and a black family lives in the other, my prejudice is going to be go to the family that most looks like me. Yeah. And that's the prejudice that I have. And it's true. I mean, that's the reality of it. So we ought not put that in a political camp. It's just the reality is I have prejudices. We all have them. The problem is when we allow those prejudices to paint a picture of us, to us, of people that we don't know, and put them in a category that's not fair to those persons when we never had an opportunity to get to know them. I think when you've been the victim often of injustice or prejudices, when you have a little more compassion about it when you go to serve other people who have been the victim. For me, that's been eye-opening for me. You know, just over the years, I've made it my effort and my goal to be around people who don't look like me, don't think like me, don't worship like me, don't do anything like me. And it's made me a better, well-rounded person to be able to expose myself to arenas outside of my comfort level. And that's the point I was trying to make, that let's not just throw it into the political arena. Let's take a look at it. And I have to confess, I have my prejudices.
Yeah.
And I have to deal with those prejudices. We all have them.
Yeah, yeah. I totally relate to that. Some of this is my own ignorance. It feels like maybe things were better for a time, and then now we're going backwards. Are we going backwards, or did I just not know that it wasn't better?
You probably didn't know that it hasn't been much better.
Okay.
Even though people think things are much better, the impoverished communities are still very much impoverished. The poor communities are still very poor. It's not much better. Things haven't, the change that there has been minute in change. Nothing significant to make an impact upon a lot of people. Just it hasn't happened yet.
So someone not of color, they're not African American, they're not Hispanic, they're not an immigrant, says, what are you talking about? This is America. Everybody has the same opportunity. How would you respond to that?
It's just not a true statement. It's
Okay.
just, that's a naive belief that people are, prejudice and racism is still very much alive. When I worked, I had a good government job, I say. And I worked hard and I got promoted and I had those opportunities given to me. But there were occasions and situations where I would go into environments and people wouldn't even know I was there. They wouldn't even acknowledge my presence as an African American in a environment where it's mostly Anglos working. They wouldn't even greet me, say hello to me. Yeah. So it's just not true that those opportunities are there. It's just not a reality.
Okay. What are you hopeful about in all of this arena, the context of this conversation?
Well, I think it is my prayer and hope that we begin to establish meaningful relationships. That's, to me, number one, is everything is relationship. Just getting to know that my family is just like your family. I've got 6 children, and I want them to have the best that they can have in life. I want them to know the Lord. I want them to grow in the kingdom. I want them to succeed and have their families and raise their kids. I want the same thing for them as you would want for your family.
Yeah.
But I want them to be able to be raised and live in a culture and in a community and in a world where there's understanding and compassion and patience and respect and honor appropriately. That's my prayer and my hope. I'm hopeful that we can build bridges. That's my big deal. Let's build bridges.
What are some of the challenges that your church faces that maybe you deal with, your people deal with regularly?
Yeah.
Along these lines.
Yeah, I think if you were to talk to some members of my church about what's going on in their everyday life, they would tell you that, getting gainfully employed is still a challenge, even with education. We got people graduating from college, they can't get a job. They would tell you the ability to get promotions on the jobs that they do have is still a challenge. They still are facing racism. They're still facing prejudices. That still is an issue in our everyday lives. It's still very much real.
Yeah, I was questioning whether or not I was going to ask you this, so I'm just going to man up here and ask you.
Man up, bro.
I know that you have tremendous respect for police officers. I know that you have people in your church who are civil servants in that way. I also know, because you are, God's blessed you, you're a successful person, that on occasion, you might be pulled over, whatever, for no reason. How do you manage, because there's a lot of tension in our world, and I do think media paints these two sides that to some extent are there and to a large extent they're not there. Or maybe I'm mistaken with that, but how do you manage that tension?
Yeah, when I tell you that is a very real issue in the African American community, it really is. It is not. It is not blown out of proportion. I remember one Sunday I was going to church, driving, dressed up in a suit, driving a black Lexus. That's what I drive, is a black Lexus. And I pulled out on the main highway, and within minutes, I got pulled over by a police officer. Not just pulled over, but he came to the window of my car with his gun pulled and aimed at my head. And this is 7 a.m. on a Sunday morning.
Yeah.
And I rolled my window down. I said, first of all, why'd you pull your gun out? And why are you aiming it at my head like that? Because I was, wondering what I had done. I just thought it was an over push for the situation and the circumstance. I wasn't speeding. They got a report that somebody had robbed a 7-Eleven in a car that matched mine. Now, okay. Do people in black Lexuses rob 7-Elevens? Do y'all have 7-Elevens out here?
We do.
It was ridiculous, but for him to come to the car with his gun pulled and aimed at my head like that was just unreal to me, and it happens. If you're in a community that they don't think you should be in,
yeah,
it is they're pulling you over to examine why are you in this community.
Yeah.
So I live in a small community. There's only 33 houses in the community. So he saw me pull out of that community, and he wanted to know. He told me that a 7-Eleven had been robbed. But see, what he didn't know is that I know the chief of police. Mm-hmm. So I could call the chief of police and find out if that was accurate, and it wasn't accurate.
Yeah.
So, I'm in a level where I can voice my complaint and do some research and get some answers, whereas an average person can't do that. So it's a real issue.
Well, I drive a black Lexus. That's never happened to me.
Wow.
I mean, come on. In my house, my wife is from Scotland. I have 2 boys. One looks like me, which we can decide whether or not that's fortunate or unfortunate. The other one, which is fortunate for him, he looks like my wife. Red hair, freckles, got that whole Scottish thing going Um, both of my boys have friends that are African American, that are Hispanic, that are Asian. They don't think twice about it. They don't, none of that. This whole deal, because at the end of the day, there's one race, right?
Yeah.
There's the human race,
Yep.
and then you have all these ethnicities.
Yeah.
This sin, is it just something that we teach, or is it something that's inborn?
Our children are going to do much better in this arena than we have done. I don't know how old your kids are, but my children are much better at it. They have grown up in an environment where they have great friends all across the spectrum, and they don't have these same prejudices and issues that we grew up with. They do great. So I'm hopeful that this next generation, these kids growing up today, are going to treat it a lot differently than we have in the past. Yeah. And they don't have to live through in many cases, the history that a lot of, what my father went through and my grandfather went through, and what they had to experience. They won't have that journey.
Yeah. I'll mention this to you. I mean, I grew up in the South. My grandparents talked in a way that was not honoring to God or to people. My parents were much better. And hopefully for my children and their heart, it won't even be an issue. But I'll just confess this to you. I think I'm good on this, right? But every once in a while, brother, there's just something in the bucket of my soul. There's this sludge down on the bottom of it that I hadn't dealt with yet. And I don't even know, I don't even know it's there. You had mentioned you have some of that in you.
Absolutely.
When you are convicted along those lines, what do you pray? How should I pray? How can we get better?
Yeah, I think it's important that exactly what we're doing right here, right now, is so critical. You didn't have to call and invite me to come and sit down and chat with you about this.
Yeah, and you didn't have to come.
I didn't have to come. But we pushed past our comfort levels and sat down and had this discussion. And we talked about it in Florida, when we were together in Florida. I think that's what has to happen, that we have to sit down and get to know and be able to be transparent and honest, and don't just come up with the religious answers that I love everybody and everything is great and fine and I don't have no prejudices. Let's not play that game. Let's be honest and say, you know what, I recognize I do have my own prejudices, but I'm pushing past that and not acting on what I feel, my emotions, but I'm acting on what I know to be truth, principles of truth. And I came here today to spend time with you so that we could further better know each other, even beyond the mentoringship, but on a friendship level, on a ministry level. That's what the kingdom calls for. That's what we got to do.
Absolutely. We're going to spend eternity together.
Absolutely.
You're going to have to put up with me for a long time. Yeah.
And we just got to do more of it. And I would say to the members of Sun Valley, connect with some people in their communities that they wouldn't normally talk to and wouldn't normally connect with or talk to. Mm-hmm. Get outside of the circle of the people that you normally hang out with and make an effort to get to know somebody different than you.
Yeah. Now somebody right now, you said that and they're going, oh, he's so awkward and uncomfortable. Following Jesus is awkward and uncomfortable, right? I mean, I don't know that we can follow Jesus and be comfortable at the same time. Mm-hmm. So that's good counsel.
Jesus said, by this shall men know that you are my disciples, because you have loved one to another, that you show other people love. If I only love those who love me, I haven't done anything. Yeah. But when I love those who I don't know, or I love people who may not know me, when I go outside of my comfort level, I'm showing that I am a disciple of Jesus.
Well, you have impacted our church in ways, I mean, prior to this conversation, and I'm really grateful that we had this today, but in ways that I don't know that I can fully convey to you just because your impact on me. And I'm grateful for that. And love you, have tremendous respect for you, and really appreciate your ministry. Thank you.
Thank you for the opportunity. I hope the best for Sun Valley. This is my first time actually being close to Sun Valley or being even in the building. And the work that y'all are doing, I have the highest respect for you guys. And thank y'all for having me. And I wish the best for the Sun Valley Church and family.